All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Business Freedom Podcast. I am super excited. Today, our guest is John Mikesh, who runs a team out of Lake Norman, which is just north of Charlotte, which is the market that I serve. And I'm just excited to have John on the show. John, what is going on?
Hey, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So let me start out with the question, right? The question that we ask all of the folks that we have on the show is, are you prepared to share the good, the bad, and the ugly about your business growth journey?
For better or worse, I'm going to do it. My wife always says you're #no filter. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah.
Hopefully you got a good editor.
Yeah. The uglier, the better. Awesome. John, to get us started, is there one motivational quote that you can think of that's come up for you? You're like 10 years in the business or something. Is there one motivational quote that has come up for you that's inspired you over the years?
Yeah, I mean, a lot's changed, obviously, like when you go through this kind of a growth journey, like we're going to talk about from where I was to where I am. And I think the quotes have changed along the way. When I first got into the business, I remember picking a quote because I had a mentor at the time and he was like, you really need like a quote that like solidifies what your belief is. And at the time, my quote was, good things come to those who wait, but only that which is left behind by those who hustle. And for me, like one of my biggest drivers, my biggest motivators was always freedom. So that quote spoke to me in the sense that like, I'm in control of my freedom. If I work hard, like I can make it happen. And it's all about, what I put into it. But I think right now, it's more of a quote that I think about on the regular is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, to go together. And it's this idea of like building up people. And when I look at my business where it is today, I realize that it's been about really good people that I've had that have come on this journey with me that I've been able to lead and guide. And that makes all the difference.
Awesome. So that we can keep the listeners on as long as possible, give us a quick teaser about where you came from in terms of solo production and what the team has done in the last couple of years.
Oh man, my start was rough. I got started in real estate in upstate New York at a little mom and pop shop, and business just came to us because we advertised heavily in the city. We got all these weekenders that would come up on the weekend and just pay cash for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes that they use for 2 days a week. And I thought I knew what real estate was, and I just kind of sat in this office and handled people that came to me. So I said, great, I'm going to move to Charlotte where the market's way bigger and I'll have a better place to raise my family and more opportunity. And I came down to Charlotte in 2006 and just fell on my face. I remember I started at Keller Williams and there was hundreds of agents in there. And I walked in and I'm like, well, now what do I do? Like nobody comes into me. And I was just looking around like I had no clue what I was getting into. And, sometimes our best successes come from our greatest struggles. And I just remember being there super lost and had 3 jobs at the time, wondering like, why did I do this? What kind of mistake did I make? And it was, just finally finding like a mentor and a coach and, starting to put some pieces together and following what those who had already done it before me were doing and taking one step in front of another. And that's when things started to really click. I started to build my team in like the 2010. It was like me and my sister, and we had my mom working for us. And then it was like me, my sister, and this one other person that Remax at the time couldn't recruit. So they just gave them to me. And then it grew from there and we got more and more people. And some of those people stayed with me for many years. But I guess where my tracking really started to take off and I started to pay attention to what we were doing was 2013, we did 32 million. 2014, we did 45 million. 2015, we went to 83 million. And then that was my last year where I had any involvement in production. And then 2016, we dipped a little bit to 75 million, maintained that 75 million again in 17, and 2019 on pace to do 90 million.
Awesome. And you've been out of production for how long now?
Since 3 years.
And you're
so
really
June 1st of 2015.
Awesome. And you really just consult into the business at this point. Doesn't consume 100% of your waking hours. It's pretty leveraged at this point.
Yeah. So exiting out in 2015, 2016, I was very involved in like training my listing partner and, really being the sales manager. 2017, really let my listing partner kind of do his own thing. And with guidance, of course, was just in the management role. And then the goal is for this year to pull myself out of that, which we've done. And my listing partner has also become our sales manager as we've trained another listing partner. So really cool to be able to like build something and step away from it carefully and watch it still continue to grow and flourish.
Yeah. And like you said, also giving team members opportunities that they would never get at other companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about, let's kind of deconstruct the growth. There's a lot of listeners, that have these like aspirations to build something and they don't really know what the different phases look like. I talk about survival, as one of the phases of growth, that it's like 90% of agents don't sell more than 2 homes a month.
Right.
And so, but take it from like 2 to 6, when you got to like 60, 70 deals, take that, talk about that time, what it looked like. Then maybe 6 to 12, where you're like 70 to 140 sides. And then, just talk about, chunk down the different phases of growth and what some of the challenges were. Did you feel prepared for each phase? What was it about you that kind of kept you going during those different phases of growth? Let's talk about it. And I'll kind of ask you questions along the way.
So like, I can remember real clearly going back to the very beginning where I was at my first like real estate conference, and I was sitting there and I had heard everything from the main stage and I was like super excited. Like, wow, there's a whole bunch of people here that have figured this thing out. And I just always had that discipline of being coachable. Like, hey, if you can do something, just show me how to do it and I'll do it. Like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I remember being in a breakout session, really figuring like I had an idea of like how this was going to work. And I was listening to this guy talk, and at the end he shared his numbers. And at that time I was like, man, imagine if I could sell 3 houses a week or a month. That's almost a house a week. Like, that was my thought process. Like, if I could sell 3 a month, because at the time I was probably averaging like 1.5 a month, working 90 hours a week, scrapping it, like trying to find deals under rocks. So I was like, if I could put something on autopilot where I could sell 3 a month, then 3 a month would be double what I was doing, and that would change my life. And at the end of this talk, the guy shared with us, he had sold, I don't know, like 80 homes or something, and his GCI was 800,000. And he was like, I brought 200 home. And I was like, whoa, I have no idea what this is about. Like, how am I going to make 800 and only keep 200? Like that was so like, it went from such a high to such a low that I was like, whoa, what am I doing here? But then it really caused me to, really focus on like, what am I building? Why am I building it? And how is a leveraged dollar better than a dollar I have to earn all on my own? So we started figuring that out. And then, when we got to that, I guess I put my head down, I went to work, and I don't think I picked it up until we were past 100 sales a year. So that was like the first thought process. And I just went and implemented some real easy systems and just worked hard, same hard as I was, but I was doing things specifically to get specific predictable results. But then it was like, okay, once I broke through 100, it was like, all right, well, now I'm really just running on all cylinders. I don't have any extra time. How do I get more? Like, how are people selling 2, 3, 4, 500 homes and more a year when I feel like I'm totally exhausted at 100 homes a year? And what it was for me at that point was, okay, like, operations needs to get really, really good because I need to just focus on sales. And I realized I was doing way too many things that I could delegate out. And 2 blessings came into my life that year. Somebody that did FSBO and expired prospecting for me, and a rock star admin / personal assistant. Somebody who just owned everything in the office for me so that I could be out meeting with clients all the time. And one of those people are still with me today. The other one stayed with me for 4 years. And that was what got me from 100 to 200, because I was able to focus on sales and recruiting. And we grew our agent base. We grew up to like, 3 buyers agents at that time. And then going from 100 to 200 size was just, all right, now I'm not doing any buyers. I'm only focused on recruiting agents and listings. And because my FSBO and expired person was doing such a good job by then, they were able to set me consistent appointments. We also started dropping in some guarantees with some flyer marketing. That helped because we're talking, market was really bad still then. It hadn't really like come up. And, beyond that, it's just been, so that was to 200. And then 200 to, 250 or beyond, all we did was less to do more. And what I mean by that is, it wasn't like we grew that much in sides. but we cut so many unnecessary expenses. We stopped changing everything that we were doing every 6 months when I went to a new conference and learned something new. And we really just focused on, let's do a few things really well instead of a lot of things really poorly. And that's been the big shift for us now, is like, how can we simplify our business to make it more efficient and more predictable for all the people that are a part of it and for myself.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to take you back to the time where it was like that survival mode. You were working way too many hours, selling 1 to 2 homes a month. You know, what did your days look like? Like, how do you chunk out the different sort of hats you need to wear to be able to go? Like, I feel like that's the missing piece. You know, how do you
I think so. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, we know a ton of people in our market. We're in the same MLS market, if you will. And we see all these teams around us trying to come up. And we're like, wow, those people go to the same seminars. We see them there. They've had a lot of the similar coaching and backgrounds that we've been exposed to, yet their teams never grow. Why is that? And I think it's this idea that too often when you're in that 1 to 2 deal in your survival mode and you start to have some success, you want to immediately reward yourself. And I think that's the challenge, is because when you're in that survival zone, you tend to get burned out, but you really are from a list. People take their foot off the gas way too early. So I can share a story with you that happened recently that will help understand like what my life looked like back then. We were out on the boat for dinner and we went to this waterfront restaurant. And while we were there, we ran into some past clients of mine. And these are past clients of mine from like many, many years ago. And my wife was like, oh, wow, man, they've been in our database for so long. Like, how did we even come about them? And I'm like, I can tell you exactly how we met them. We met them on a Tuesday night when I was dialing for dollars at 8:45 at night. And they came in on a classified ad that I ran in the local paper. And she was like, hello, like, I'm calling about these deals on the lake. And I'm like, absolutely. I got her in my office the next day. I showed her property that weekend and we went out for a day and a half and she bought a $700,000 home for me. I will never forget those people, because I'll never forget the pain of what it was like to be dialing at those hours after I got done with everything else that it took to run my business and like trying to have this ad hoc admin position going on, and then like babysitting that and fixing everything and dealing with listing clients that were upset because it was a horrible market to sell. And it was just like, you had to do all that and still do your prospecting. Where it's like, now if I could just get some of my agents to consistently prospect a couple hours a day, I could change their life. But it's that, like, you had to do it and be all in all the time.
Yeah. And I feel like that's, you know, when I look back on our journeys are really similar in that same organization early on, where it was Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Like if nothing else, you know, you guarded 6:30 to 8:30 on Tuesday, 6:30 to 8:30 on Thursday. And you tracked, you know, even though I wasn't using a triple line dialer, nobody, you know, I had to pay for the leads, or I was running the ads, you know, so we had to do all of it ourselves and be the inside sales and be the outside sales.
Right.
And like, failure was not an option. You know? And so it's, and that is the missing piece. I mean, the year that I did 120 closings, I did 66 myself.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
was like 65 too many, you know? So it was, I had a kid and the second kid was on the way. And, you know, I feel like a lot of folks don't, like you said, they want to get to 20 sides and then they hire 3 buyer agents.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are you doing? And we have these teams.
They hire 3 buyers agents. They buy a new vehicle or multiple new vehicles and they upgrade their house. And I'm like, okay, where's your margin for when you grow this thing from 100 to 200 sides, where you might have a slow season and you go negative in your bank account 150 grand to make it through that season? Like, you have to have that margin. Like, they don't realize that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, cool. Let's talk about, you know, one of the things I don't see a whole lot of, and I know we know some of the same folks. Nobody really comes out and, like, you know, waves their hands about all the failures they've made in their real estate growth journey. And I think there's so much value in that. I think if we shared more of that, I think there will be less isolation. There'd be, you know, I think it's just a lonely industry because we're not open about those things.
Yeah.
Are there a couple points where you can think about a really tough time you know, I don't believe there are failures because, you know, it all leads to something greater, but can you think of a couple tough times that you can coach everyone that's listening through? You know, this is going to happen. It's going to feel like this, and
Yeah.
take us through those.
You know, I think knowing what I know now, if I could go back there's just no way I didn't know it then, but if I did, I would have spent more time analyzing what it was I was learning and what the other options were that were out there to maybe align myself with the right person at the right time. Sometimes I just fell into another program because I heard of it and I was chasing too many squirrels. And I just decided, okay, now I'm going to go do this without really understanding, you know, what is that organization trying to create? What's their belief system? What do they value? And jumping into something that wasn't right for me because it wasn't an alignment of values on what a business should look like or could look like. And then I'd find myself a year in being like, I don't even want what you guys are teaching me how to do. So that was like a big realization for me, is like, I don't care what you know until I want what you have. And if I don't want what you have, then I don't really care what you know, because there's way more. We try to think that there's one way to build this business, but there's not. There's many different models. And if you want to, you know, have a huge team of people all doing a little in a very organized, like, you know, fashion where you're managing a ton of people to get a result, you can do that. If you want to have a few people that you empower to do a ton, you can do that. There's just different ways to do it, is what I've found. And it has to align with what your values and your beliefs are.
Yeah. So what about that felt rough for you? Was it the disappointment that you were, you know, 10 months into a coaching program and you're like, this sucks? Or
No, I think it was more.
Was it just your human nature? Like you as an entrepreneur, you tend to go down the rabbit holes.
Yeah. So a couple of things, really. It's realizing that it's not what you wanted and kind of feeling like, oh man, why did I do that? That was stupid. Like I don't want this. It's the challenge of, you know, breaking those relationships with those people that comes with that. And then it's also the challenge of like, what did you just put your people through? Like, we all make decisions as entrepreneurs because we're the person in charge and we have the freedom to do that. But a lot of times we don't think about the impact that it has on the people behind that are actually manning the boat while we're gone, doing these things and learning these new skills. So, you know, I was able to see how by switching platforms, programs, protocols, like all that stuff put wear and tear on my people. And, you know, I probably lost some good people along the way that I wouldn't have lost if I was the leader then that I am now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point. We had, at one of our intensives, we had a guy talk, and it really hit me what he said. He made the comment, how did he say it? He got real emotional talking about it, but basically making the shift from, you know, a business that serves you selfishly to like you really in your heart serving the business and the people in it.
Right.
And, you know, it feels like in those early years, like everything is stacked against you, you know, like you're building like the first iPhone that ever existed.
Right.
It's like, I'm taking the like I'm putting my credit card on the line. I'm flying around the country. I'm missing time with my family. And then you sort of develop this, like, you know, do your shit, like just do it and stop complaining about it. And like, you can't, just because you made a decision to go down this path, you can't hold your people, you know, you can't have this anxiety, this resentment for your people.
And part of the challenge with that is when we're going through all that and we're feeling that way, you know, we get bitter. And I know that there was times where I was like, I was just not a pleasant person to be around because I was like so goal driven, so focused, running so hard that I was just a jerk. And I didn't take enough time for self-care. I wasn't watching my diet. I wasn't exercising. I was just going through the motions as hard and as fast as I could. And, you know, that comes with its own collateral damage, I guess.
Yeah. And we had a conversation, you and I, at one point, and I want to ask you to share a little bit about it. We were talking, and it was something about, it was almost like a light went off where and I'm the same sort of makeup, where it was like, you realize that growth for growth's sake is not going to lead to satisfaction. Like, you know, it was a bigger plan to have, you know, literally to have the franchise prototype, you know, in full action. And I think you tested a market and you're like, no, this has me away from my family like 3 weekends a month or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. We went into, we decided that we were going to go into the Asheville market, and we opened up another office there. Like, I pretty much wanted an office in Asheville because I like Asheville. So I'm like, I'm going to go put an office there without really thinking through that. I swear I asked my wife, but to this day, she says I never consulted with her whatsoever. You were like, here's the lease, and we're getting a place up here. But that's her story. I don't know if I buy it, but she's probably right. I'm probably wrong. And I was up there and we were doing deals. I mean, the office was profitable within its first 6 months. And she was like, what are we doing this for? And I was like, I don't know. Like the whole idea of like having a second office was like great in theory. But when I factored in that I was going to be away from my family 3 nights a week, I mean, that was a miserable time. There was nothing fun about it. And she just came to me and she was like crying, and she's like, we don't need the money, and it's not worth risking our marriage. And I was like, whoa. And I just closed it the next day. And it was a blessing, like on so many different levels, that my wife had the foresight to like say that to me and think that through, for me to be like, okay, I'm going to do it. Cause usually the D in me, the salesman in me, it will like show her why I'm right and prove and sell her. Okay, I'm done. And we closed it up. And what's interesting and cool about that is I had several people up there working for me. And the minute I closed that office, new doors opened up for all of them that were better doors than the ones they were in with me. So It was really, really cool.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about another sacrifice that we make. You mentioned self-care and not taking care of yourself physically. Talk about, I know you and Jennifer have, done a lot with that in recent years, but talk about that in the context of like, how does your business become so important that you kind of slip in your parenting and your being a good husband and I'm saying you as a generic you, in your health and your spiritual walk. Talk about that a little bit. I think that's worth spending a little bit of time on.
Well, my wife and I have a belief that our business is our family, and there isn't a separation between our family and our business, because we have a family business and a lot of our family is in our business, and our business gives our family the freedom that it has. So we see them as very interconnected. And my wife and I have strong Christian beliefs, and we have strong beliefs about, physicality and just like what we're doing to ourselves as a country, as a society right now. Why is it that we're the United States of America and we're the most unhealthy first world country out there? Like, there's just a huge problem that we believe in. It's probably a whole nother topic that everybody's just walking around blind to. And if we can impart some education and some knowledge on even the people that we come into contact with, we feel like to not do so within our business would be wrong of us to not share that with them. So, we try to take everything that we're doing personally and bring it into our business in a way to help bring our people up and teach our people, because, our people, a lot of times we have the most influence over them of anybody outside their immediate family. So the people that we do business with, we want to try to impact for greater good, not just what they're going to make income wise.
Yeah.
So awesome. we went vegan. We're not 100% vegan right now, but we try to be. It's really had a huge impact on our life and our health. There's some things going on in my family and health-wise right now with my dad who's got cancer, and we're just trying to be a good example for him and show him that there's other ways to do things other than conventional medicine, where you take a pill to help you with a problem and not associate with the symptoms. So,
yeah, awesome. How about was there a time or a time period where you can remember where there was just a light bulb, some kind of realization that, man, this is like, I've got it. That success, that aha moment.
Well, there's been successes at different stages, but I think in the beginning it was just about, getting the revenue in, making the sales. And that was really the only thing that mattered. And I got to a point where I became very comfortable with, the revenue that we were bringing in, the sales that were happening. But the real shift happened when you and I started to do some work together. And I remember you telling me this whole business is 80% mental. And it was still like maybe 25% mental for me at that time. And it was 75% about doing. And when I made that shift and kind of you helped me walk through that, that was a huge eye opener in my business. And it allowed me to really come out of production. And, you know, I have you to thank for that. You know, you'll always be the guy that helped me do that. And it was huge. I mean, it gave me my life back, and it allowed me to work on my business in ways that I never would have been able to had I stayed in production. And now I can, like you said earlier on this podcast, now I can really feed into my people and have other opportunities for them with inside this business that would never have existed if I would have stayed in that role and kind of hogged that spotlight.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, real estate attracts people that, you know, they want to be the image, they want to be the brand, they want to, you know, that's kind of, it strokes their ego. And I think once you sort of let that go, and you did it through, you know, coming up with a real estate business name that had nothing to do with your name.
And that goes back to what I was talking about values earlier, is like, that was one of those things I never agreed with. They were always like, oh, you have to, like, it's your name in lights and it has to be about you, that people want to do business with a person, not a company. And I just didn't believe it, because I just asked myself, like, what do I like to do business with? I like to do business with local companies that put out a good product that's well designed, and whenever possible. And I was like, I don't align with that. Like, so there's got to be people that think the way I do. And I don't want anybody looking for me. I don't want my name to be the one in spotlight. So.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's dig into the current business a little bit. Talk about team structure, talk about profitable lead sources, talk about the loser lead sources that you pursued over the years. Let's kind of dig into what the business looks like today.
Yeah, sure. So right now we have 2 administrative people. We have 10 buyers agents and 1.5 listing partners, 10 salespeople. So in that salespeople is my 1.5 listing partners. And we have really streamlined a lot of things that we do. So it's pretty straightforward right now. We track 7 things in our business, and that's it. We focus all of our accountability on the 7 measures for our salespeople. And, you know, in times past, it might've been 14 or 21 things or 50 things. But one of the things that I realized about myself is that I'm not going to manage 700 different things. And if you're not going to manage it, there's no point in tracking it. So I said, what's the simplest parts that I can get my business down to where I have the numbers I need and I have the numbers that I need to help my people. So if my people are having struggles, I know exactly where the hole in their boat is because of these 7 things we track. So I know if they're messing up in this place, I can attack that problem with them and sit down with them, and we can be effective with our time. I don't need anything else to do that job. So until an agent comes to me and I can't help identify their problem because I'm not tracking something, I have no need to add more tracking. So that's been a big thing for me, is just to keep it really simple, because What are the 7 things? So we track number of dials, number of conversations, number of appointments set, number of appointments had, number of follow-up calls, number of new contracts, and number of closings.
Awesome.
Those are the only things we need to track.
Awesome. And all right, cool. So how about some of the profitable lead sources?
Profitable lead sources for us are and always have been FSBO and expired. We do a good job on there. We do a good job with circle prospecting, so dialing out, outbound circle prospecting. And our best lead source by far is our Sphere, our past clients, people know, like, and trust us. It's a little lower this year than it's been in the past. We're at 35% this year to date. Typically we're north of 40%. But it's always been a really good source. We do a bunch of events for our clients and just really do a good job of keeping up with them in the database. And, awesome. And obviously we do buyer lead traffic. Zillow's down. Zillow used to be a 5 or 6 to 1 ROI. This year it's a 3 to 1 ROI. So we're kind of watching that closely. We really see that that'll go away over the next couple of years entirely, because they're just going to continue to grind as much profit as they can out of us. And it's cool. Like, I get it. It's their business model. I'm not mad about it. I'm not like refusing to work with them. As long as I can pull a profit out of it, I'll do it. But we're watching it closely because we're seeing less and less there. Google pay-per-click, social media. So we're doing all those.
Yeah. Just a quick, I don't know if I told you this. What we realized on on Zillow. And so we went from $5,000 a month to just Zillow Premier.
Yeah.
And so it's basically 5,000 to 1,000. And our leads, they didn't go down by 80%. I'll tell you that much. They
That's
went
awesome.
down maybe by half, but also people are just finding us, because they're searching for, maybe they heard of like your name or Roost, and they're doing Roost. They'll Google searching Roost real estate, and they'll click on your Zillow profile.
Right.
And so if you Google Roost real estate, I bet you your Zillow profile shows up organically.
Sure.
And so everyone has 100%. I'll probably get a cease and desist from Zillow, but everyone has 100% permission to cut their Zillow down to just Zillow here.
That's awesome.
So, and we haven't, we were like, we went from like 8 times ROI on Zillow to 6 to 5 to 3 to like 2.5. I'm like,
not worth it.
All because of their price increases.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Like they're not in the business of making it, for a team leader work. They're for the solo agent. So it's more difficult for team leaders. How about lead sources that have failed for you?
So ugly lead sources for me, or things we've done that made no money and just cost a lot of money. For me, Infusionsoft was complete like 6-figure drain of income. I was not able to get that to work in my real estate business. My personal philosophy is that it's a great product. It's just not designed for real estate business. And there's way too many variables and moving parts in real estate. And most of the people listening to this that are good salespeople, that are the type of good realtors that are looking to grow their business, are probably not computer programmers, because they're, totally opposite personality traits. And you really need to be a computer savvy programmer type person to be able to make that work. That was a bad one. What else? Anything that starts with or ends with website, if it's not a platform, just don't do it. The whole idea of SEO, organic reach, is the most biggest crock of what out there. Just go get something predictable and go get a platform and get the most out of that. Because even if you kill it on SEO, they'll make a change next year and that entire investment of your time and energy was wiped out. Yes. So we do have a website that's branded to our company, Roost Real Estate, that's outside of our platform, but just go ahead and get one that's really inexpensive, where they guarantee you this is all the things you're going to get. Don't try to hire somebody and build a website. It's just, I know of 100 more people that it didn't work for than the 2 that it did work for.
Yeah. Content and SEO is like a 10-year game.
Yeah. I believe in content, but like just put it on social media. You'll get more bang for your buck out there.
Awesome. What's something you're doing really well right now in your business?
I'm not doing anything in my business right now, so that's really well for me.
I like it. It's a good answer. What are you excited most about your real estate business for the future?
I'm really excited that I was able to step out, and I think that we did it very healthily for my business to where it didn't go down. It was kind of you try it and you did all the right steps, but you're still like, is this thing going to crash and burn without me like being over top of it every day? And it doesn't. And it's just great. And even last year, it was like I was heavily involved in the tracking of the business. So like every day I'm looking at the numbers. And then this year I just said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at my numbers in my business once a week, and that's it. And that was just like another breath of fresh air, because I'm not like constantly thinking and worrying about it and like, oh, is this happening? Is that happening? I'm just letting the systems that we put in place run on autopilot. And if there's a problem that comes up, great, we can address it. We can sit down and talk about it and figure out what the plan is to improve it or fix it. But I don't need to be like worrying about it and messing with it every day. I found that by messing with it only made it worse.
Yeah. Awesome.
It also gives my people the ability to step up and lead in their own position. If I'm constantly like meddling with it, they feel like they can't do anything because I'm going to be there to step in and take care of it for them.
Yeah. One thing, and I think you and I have talked about this before, but one thing a lot of business owners struggle with is just enjoying the ride. We're just hard chargers. We're just striving all the time. I was at a memorial service recently where one of the sons, said about his dad, this guy dropped the ball in a lot of areas of his life. And it was like, whoa, I can't believe he just said that at his dad's funeral, but
Yeah,
the point was that he made it right at the end.
that's cool.
But it was the whole striving and depriving. It's that we're not enjoying the ride. I know you've made big shifts lately, but what practices have you put in place to make sure that you're thinking long game, that you're actually enjoying the ride?
Yeah. So I saw a quote on social media actually this morning, and it said something to the effect of, if it takes energy from me, it's not worth the investment. And to me, it just spoke like, hey, if something's bothering me, like if there's something in my business that day in, day out, whether it's a person, a thing, or a system, a technology, if it's bothering me and like causing me pain or angst, like it's not worth the investment. Like there's no buyer agent that you're going to bring on your team that's a pain in the ass that's worth it. I promise you that. And sometimes you just got to, help them move on to a better opportunity for your own good and for theirs.
Yeah.
And I've learned that through the years too. And I've had to make some hard decisions there, but they're decisions that I definitely don't look back on with regret.
Yeah.
But another thing you can do is, I'll give you something real practical. That's been a great thing that I started doing this year. And I would go to these conferences and they would be like, hey, I'd always hear like, you need to meditate and you need to journal. And I'd be like, man, every time I know that those are two things I need to do, but I always come back and I never have them done. So the meditation thing I'm still working on. I got Headspace as an app. It's pretty cool. It walks you through it. You can set the amount of time. So if you only have 5 minutes, like you only have 5 minutes, but it'll walk you through it. So that one's been a little bit helpful there. But what's been really helpful for me in the journaling is the 5-minute journal. And you can like Google this, but it's super easy to do, because where I got stuck on journaling is I'd open this book and it'd be a plain white sheet of paper. And I'd be like, what am I going to write? And it was like too much thought process. But with the 5-minute journal, it's like, hey, I wake up and there's 3 things that I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make today great, and a daily affirmation that you write about yourself. It takes 5 minutes or less. And then at nighttime, it's just, hey, what were 3 great things that happened today? And what is one thing you could have done better? And I love that, because I'm starting my day and ending my day with positivity. But that last little piece, a lot of times we go through life and we go through these seasons, and there's so many learning opportunities in there where we could learn from the experience that we've had to not make the same mistakes moving forward. But we never take that minute to reflect on like, well, what could I have done better? And it's those little moments where you're talking to somebody and you realize that you were distracted, or you ran into that meeting mad about something or preoccupied by something. You didn't give that person your attention or time, and you start to get better, and you start to make a real difference in how you respond to situations when you start to think through those.
Yeah. We got our entire team. There's a paper version of it.
Nice.
And there's also an app, and the app is really cool because you can attach images to it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Are you using the app?
No, I have the handwritten journal.
Yeah,
it's the only thing I do in my life that's handwritten.
Yeah, no, I love the handwritten version. I mean, it's and our team members have bought them for their spouses and their children, and it's this whole psychology of fulfillment. Like,
yeah,
at the beginning of the day, you put your feet on the ground, and it's like 3 things I'm grateful for, and like I'm already looking into my day, the 3 awesome things that are going to happen.
Right.
That is super awesome. All right, I'm going to throw a bunch of questions at you, real rapid fire style. And
okay.
Give me the first thing that pops into your mind.
Okay.
What keeps you up at night when it comes to your business?
People that work for me that are unhappy.
What were you most afraid of when you started building your real estate team?
Running out of money.
What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
Always be adding value.
Nice. How about a personal daily or weekly habit that you believe contributes to your success?
5-minute journal.
Awesome. You can't use the same answer for this one, but give me an app or some kind of internet resource that you're in love with that you want to share with us.
So I created my own app this year because I came up with a dozen goals that I had for myself, and I put them into a Google sheet in a Google form. And then I linked the app to my home screen on my phone. So I have these dozen things, and it's like, did you exercise for 30 minutes today? And it's yes or no. And then it's on to the next one. Did you eat clean today? Yes or no. So that at the end of a quarter, I can go back and reflect. And because they're yes or no, I get a percentage in the charts, and I can see how well I accomplished that goal. so that when I go, for the next quarter, I can say, I want to improve my eating clean goal by 5%. And then I have a real number to track it against.
Yeah. Awesome. If you could recommend one book to our listeners, what would it be?
What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, written in the early 80s by Shad Helmstetter. Like we said earlier in this podcast, it's so much more about how you think than what you do. And this was a book that my very first mentor, before I even ever did any real estate coaching, made me read and highlight. And it's just an amazing, amazing book. Talks about cassette tapes and VHSs in there, but it's still relative today when it comes to the head stuff.
What's it called again?
What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. It's so good.
Awesome. I'm typing it in here. All right, perfect. All right, I lost my train of thought completely. All right. What should you have shared with us that you haven't?
It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it when you get to the other side of it. But you gotta be willing to put the work in.
Yeah.
There's no magic pill to building a team. It's a ton of work. It's much more work than people think, but if you'll do the work, the outcome is amazing.
Yeah, and I think I've shared this with our boardroom group. Like, it's going to be hard either way.
Yeah.
Like, just think, stop for a moment and think. Like, I'm 45, and like I'm in the third quarter of my life, I would say. And like, I've committed to just building businesses and adding value and learning how to feed into people and all that. And that's really hard. Like, It's super hard, but selling homes forever, like, that is hard, and it's going to suck. And you've got no exit strategy and no retirement plan.
Right.
So it's going to be hard.
The thing is, it's going to be hard, but if you're excited about it, like, hard for me is doing the same thing. Like, you just saying that made me cringe, because it's like, man, selling real estate forever, nothing would be harder than that. Yeah. Like, yeah, it was really hard when I built it, and I was working like crazy. And the first year of my daughter's life, like, I don't even remember seeing her, but like, I see her all the time now. Mm. And like, I'm willing to do something hard again, as long as it's new and it has that variety. And the cool thing is, if you build this real estate business right, you'll be able to work hard at whatever you want, because you'll get back the time, the freedom that you need to be able to go focus on your next interest.
Yeah. Awesome. John, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
If I had to do it all over again, what I would have done differently was sorry, some guy just walked in my door as I was saying that. If I had to do it all over again, I would have, man, I don't know. I really like the way that it worked for me. I probably would have focused more on people earlier and not just systems and technology. I think I put too much emphasis on technology and systems solving my problem, when I really could have gotten there faster and easier, focusing more on the people.
Yeah. Awesome. As we wrap up here, a lot of people in our industry, as you know, are struggling in that just year in, year out survival mode. What words of advice or encouragement do you have for them?
Find a mentor, work the plan, and plan the work.
Yeah. Awesome. John, really helpful. A lot of the things you've gone through, I mean, they're going to touch a lot of people's lives, and just the fact that you shared openly and honestly, just have a lot of respect for you and Jennifer and what you've built and what you continue to build, and your passion for stuff outside of real estate is awesome as well. I see you, making green crap all the time. So just how you bring Jane into it, I think is really cool. So
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, and much love and respect. Real Estate B School, thanks to you. The podcast, thanks to you. And just encourage you. You ever need anything, reach out to me. I'm always here for you. And just encouragement for all of you to go out there and just, like John said, just get a plan and work it and be consistent. And just know that there's going to be some challenges, and you're going to grow through it. And on the other side is a business and a life worth having. That's
Absolutely.
what we're after. I get goosebumps saying that.
Yeah. I mean, even hearing you say that, like, the one thing we probably didn't emphasize enough during this podcast is consistency.
Yeah.
Like, consistency is the great equalizer. Like, if you just can be consistent at it and diligent, like, sky's the limit for you.
Yeah, I'll end with this. I got a chance to talk to a guy that owns a $30 million business. And I'm like, so tell me about it. Like, what's the one thing I could do right now to get the 30 million? And
Right.
he's like, I'm only 30 million because nobody stuck with it for 28 years.
Right.
He's like, he's done one thing for 28 years.
Right.
You know, he's done a very specific thing for 28 years. And it's every 2 or 3 years he gets better and he tweaks it a little bit and he's made it more what he wants to do, but he's just done one thing for 28 years. And I think a lot of people don't do that, and just kind of take a step forward every day for 28 years and you'll have something amazing. So, all right, brother, you be good. Give my best to the family. We'll talk to you soon.
I will. Thanks, man.
All right, man.
Bye.